Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Beachy, and I'm here with Orange Blood Control, and we are in Jersey City, New Jersey, at Jersey City Medical Center. What we are looking at here is you're looking at the largest flood barrier that was ever made in America. We have two of the largest barriers here at Jersey City Medical Center, and what we're going to do, we're going to go through a deployment, maintenance, retracting of these flood barriers. What you're looking at here is a PS Industries PVC made, backed by Kevlar strapping in the back of this barrier. What I mean by strapping is everything is stitched into place to keep this flood wall protected over the longevity of the barrier itself. Now, how it's deployed, we have winches to pull this up out of the trench that you will see down here. Everything is resting in a concrete trench and bolted to the concrete. So now the bottom is completely fastened from the start of the barrier all the way across to the opposite side of the barrier. We're going to show you how to deploy the system, how to maintain the system, and how to retract the system all today in this video. We have 4 fasteners in each corner of this cover plate. Okay, we unscrew all these fasteners. First, once all 4 of the fasteners are out, we will lift this cover plate completely out. Now, to avoid confusion, what us and the contractors have came up with is a labeling system. So we have ironed in, stitched in, a labeling system. Not only here on the plate itself, but here on the track as well. So now we know A31 can only have A31. So now there is no confusion, because once we remove these, we have to put them behind the flex wall. We might put them in a storage unit. And now you're going to have about 65 to 85 of these things laying around. How are you going to know which one goes back into place? So what we'll do is we will just move the cover here, just temporarily for right now. We'll just keep it here so it's out of the way. And we will begin lifting this entire barrier. As you can see, one of our workers here is actually pulling down the winches, because this is the next part of the process. Once everything is uncovered, as you can see down the rope, we are deploying our winches to hook up to this flex wall. And what he's doing is he's putting tension on that cable so the cable doesn't get stuck inside of the winch that's embedded inside of these columns. You can see one of our associates is communicating to our other rep that's on this side. And what you'll see is an electrical panel. So the electrical panel is over on this side. You have another electrical panel on this side, which controls that section. The electrical panel on this side controls from where he is down. And we have another panel here that controls the remainder of the winches. Now we're in front of the electrical panel that controls the winches that are installed inside of all these columns. If you pan around, you'll be able to see where we are location-wise in this flex barrier. So we're about 85% of the way, all the way down the straight end of this flex wall. All right, so we have our panel here, and this is going to control only a certain amount of winches. So that everything is properly labeled. So this is only going to operate winch 15 through 29. Only ones that are going to operate. When you push the button, a light will pop on. As you can see here, if you click run, light will pop on. So you know exactly which one you're hitting. Obviously, everything's labeled. You just have to have a radio or some kind of communication to the other man or woman that is deploying the winches. So you could tell them exactly when to stop, when to hold, when to draw more cord out, whether to pull it up, down. So you can tell them exactly what needs to happen just by a simple radio communication, someone standing here in the box. What you're also seeing, this is a manual tool in case you lose power. I know the hospital has backup power generators to run all the facility, but if you ever do run into a situation, there is a side box where this can be inserted into, right there by that circular end cap. That is where you would insert this into, and you can hand crank these winches down in case of a power outage. Here we are in the deployment stage of uncovering these barriers. So what you're going to find in here, it's going to be folded up like an accordion, okay? So we need to look for these turnbuckles here, these clasps, if you will. What you're going to see some water that has accumulated here because of rainwater, because of snow. So this is a natural thing that's going to happen. There are drains on the bottom of this pan that are going to empty this out once this barrier is raised. And what we're going to do, we're going to clip this onto the winch cable that we lowered. Once we're clipped on, now we're ready to bring the barrier up. Now, since we're deploying this straight section, what we're going to do is we're going to start from this side, and we're going to begin deploying this way, which means we're going to raise only about half the barrier up a certain point, and then we'll continue to move down the line, and then we'll come back and raise everything up all the way. During this section, we will be using radios to communicate to the person at the electrical panel, to communicate to us out here. We are telling them exactly when to stop, when to start. This way they know exactly where they are level-wise, so we don't pull these things too high, we don't leave it too low. This way the tension is perfectly straight exactly through the entire barrier. Now you can even use one winch, multiple winches at a time, which is what you're seeing happen now, where you're able to use 1 to 2 to 3 winches at a time, where you could pull this up simultaneously. So you don't have to do one by one. We choose to do one by one for the most part, but you could see us operating 2 at the same time. If you are in a hurry and you really need to get this thing up, we do have other options where we can hit a couple buttons at one time. As long as you're communicating exactly how high it has to go and exactly what level you are, we can do this efficiently and safely. You'll see all the rainwater and all the debris that has been laying in this trench is all dripping down and into our trench, where we have all the drains, and we also have a perforated pipe that we installed in case water does get inside the trench, and allows the water to pass through the pipe and find the drain a lot more easily. This is going to keep this barrier safe and secure for longevity purposes. It's time to incorporate the end of the barrier into the steel plate that we have embedded in our concrete here, as you're seeing. So what you're also going to see, we have a carabiner on the top attaching the end of the barrier to a rope, which we have to pull to locate and anchor to the top where you see those eye bolts on top. This is our vertical termination plate, is what we call it, what we refer to it as. We have steel plates going here, vertically down, all the way to the bottom of the trench, to where our barrier is bolted all the way here throughout the entire process, all the way down to the other side. Now these clamp bars stay permanently installed. We remove and slide over these termination plates here. As you'll see, there are 2 bolts at the top and the bottom that we loosen, and we can move this panel back and forth to get our installation properly. So you'll see that there's a channel here. There's a channel which this bar, we call it a dead man, is supposed to go into the channel, and then we slide this panel over to seal it properly to the concrete, allowing no water to pass through this back end of the termination plate. Now you'll see the process go down now as he's loosening these bolts. It'll make these able to spin and move as you need them to begin that process. So we just loosen them up to keep them here, to keep these plates here at all times. So when you are doing a deployment, you don't have to go looking for these pieces. You don't have to go looking for these bolts. You don't have to go looking for these bolts. Everything is right here in this plate at all times, no matter what. Now our PS Industries flood barrier is fully deployed, and we're going to start retracting this entire barrier. What we're going to do, we're basically going to retract our steps. We're going to start loosening our anchors from up here. We're going to slide over our panel to allow the flex wall to then come out of the track. And then we're going to start the lowering process. Once we start lowering the process from this section, we're going to go all the way down into the other side and end on the other side. From our steel plate, once we remove everything, again, you will see it never sees anti-seize applied to each and every bolt. We would never seize it again prior to putting it back in its fully resting place once this is fully retracted. We're removing the clamp bars to allow the corners to fold into the trench. What you'll see us do, once the barrier is in the trench, we will fully install these back onto the wall with the same hardware to make sure that they're not lost or stolen. Now you're going to see this flood barrier, once it's lowering into the trench, it's going to fold like an accordion on top of each other this way. If you just bunch it down there, the water's going to get caught in between, and we don't want that to happen. We'd rather it sit on top so we could eventually fall to the side and down into the drains. The barrier is fully retracted, and now we're putting it back inside the trench, which now leaves us to put all these winch cables and roll them back up into the column to make sure that they're not dangling, get broken. What we need to do, make sure of, is that we keep constant pressure on this hook as it's spooling. Otherwise it could get tangled up inside, and now we have a big problem. So we always want to keep tension on this, both on when it's coming down and when it's going back up, to prevent that extra spooling from happening. So we want to keep it all in the same track. Now the finishing touches on our retraction of our flood wall is putting the cover plates back on. So now once they're all laid, you will see that we still have, obviously, the 4 corners in which we need to anchor with a bolt that we will then seal this down. But now we're just laying the plates, and we're going to go continuously all the way down until the last plate is over. Once the last plate is down, then we will secure every single fastener and be completely done with the retraction process.